Thank you so much for watching. My name is Glen Morgan, and this is We the Governed. So today it's a really rough day actually to be making videos. I was planning to do a couple other stories today, and instead the story of the day is Charlie Kirk, the Turning Point USA founder, was assassinated this morning out at a college campus, or to say this afternoon down in Utah, and that is obviously the big news. And of course, once that happened, that's all anybody was thinking about, and it was very difficult to kind of get through some of the other video prep stories that I wanted to do, and so I just wanted to make a quick little story about this because I had so many calls of people calling in and saying, oh, are you worried that something's going to happen to you? Which seems odd to me that people would ask that necessarily, but I understand sort of, the motivation. They mean well. And also just the general kind of unbelief of the whole thing. I mean, political assassinations of non-politicians aren't the kind of thing that you have happen every day. But unfortunately, if you've been around this stuff for a while, you're going to know that sometimes all those death threats do eventually add up. And this is just really a tragic story, of course, because, this was essentially all this guy did. I mean, I knew Charlie, I was aware of him, I should say, back in about 2012, because I worked at the Freedom Foundation at the time. And I was doing grassroots outreach on college campuses in Washington State. It was about 2012, 2013, in that time frame when I first heard about Turning Point. And so they were coming out and going to the same campuses. And generally, what I was trying to do at the Freedom Foundation is I would just work with anybody else. Didn't matter if it's Young America's Foundation, Turning Point, any group that came up. I was always happy to help. And sometimes we would have people who worked at the Freedom Foundation. We'd go out and speak at their events, and we always offered that we could come out and use it. We were free speakers, and we were local in Washington State, so it was relatively easy for us to get around and help them out. I'm not a close friend of Charlie. It's not like I really knew him. Met him a few times. I did talk to him a few times, as you will if you're kind of in this conservative space. There's a lot of other people. If you're looking for a memorial tribute to Charlie Kirk, you're going to have to go somewhere else because they know him better than I, and they probably have some better things to say on a more personal basis about him. I just really knew him from afar and just working with some of the Turning Point kids in Washington State on the various college campuses here over the last, say, 10 years or so, and always been enjoyed working with them and helping them on different events or programs. Losing somebody like that with that visibility and just with the impact and the communication skills that he had is a serious loss. It kind of reminds me of when Breitbart died here a number of years ago. It's kind of that same kind of an impact, at least to me. And it's a big loss for those of us who care about liberty and freedom and trying to advance that down the road. And when you look back on some of the things that he would do, this is kind of I kind of like this photo here just because this is what he would do. He would do this Prove Me Wrong, right? This American Comeback tour that he was on, going around college campuses, and he would sit there and he would basically be having people, college students, come up and ask him questions, and he would debate about anything, and he would open to any question that anybody wanted to throw at him. And I'm going to tell you, if you haven't done that before, that's a really difficult thing to do. It's particularly difficult if all these cameras are running and any little potential mistake that you make it's going to be out there on social media, and you can see plenty of videos about this over time. And I've done it before on college campuses too, nowhere near the level or volume or scope that Charlie did. And I started out as a college activist myself for many years, and then the difference is it didn't turn into a career at the time. I actually left and did business and manufacturing for quite a while. And now that when I came back, to the crusade 15 years ago, you're older, a little different experience, but you get a chance to look back on that. I see a guy like him and I think, well, I loved being an activist, so I could have easily gone right into that out of college in the 90s, and I would have been pretty enthusiastic about doing it. And although I don't know that it's an easy way to pay your bills either. That being said, here he is, he's out there, and what is really his main goal, his great crime from the left's perspective, of course, was that he was willing to debate anywhere and on any topic at any place, all the time, constantly, in places that were hostile to him, and hostile seriously in a violent, physical, threatening way. I mean, I'm sure he got just overloaded with violent threats on a constant basis, as I'm sure his family did, because anybody who's ever had any interaction with the left knows death threats are just their daily bread and butter, as far as I can tell. I used to get a lot of death threats, or at least a reasonable number, nowhere near the type of volume that he would get. And some of you who have followed me for a while, you might remember I got a restraining order against a Democrat PCO who really probably wasn't the brightest guy out there, but he called up, left a voicemail, threatened to kill me, but he called from his home phone. It's pretty easy to identify him. In fact, when I went in to get the restraining order with the judge, I just played his death threat to the judge. That wasn't a hard restraining order to get at the time. And, I've mocked some of the death threat letters that I've had in the past just for poor spelling and bad grammar, just a real sad state of affairs in American education and probably Washington state education too. But I actually haven't had any death threats since I shot a guy on my property a couple years ago. It had nothing to do with politics. But of course, the media always presents this as conservative activists, gets involved in a shooting. But I haven't had any death threats lately. But, it's the kind of thing where if you're out there doing this kind of stuff and you're interacting in a peaceful and, outspoken, assertive way, the left is always going to threaten to kill you. It's just what they do. And, we don't know who shot him yet, at least as of the time I've done this video, but this is clearly an assassination. Here's a picture of him right before, just minutes probably before he got shot, as he would go, tossing hats into the crowd as he would do at these events. And, just another day that he's out there trying to make an impact, going around. The comeback tour is what he was calling this, I believe. And in Utah, which would probably be a relatively friendly campus compared to, say, the Evergreen State College or University of Washington or someplace like that. And this is a horrible, terrible thing. But you can't possibly, when you're a speaker, you can live in a bubble and live in a bunker and nobody will ever see you, and then you can have a minimal impact. Or you make the choice that you're going to go out there and actually interact with people with whom you disagree. And Charlie said all the time, he was saying, I'm doing this so that we can show that in a free society like ours, in a republic like America, that we can have this kind of interaction and freely and openly debate our differences. And it doesn't mean that it has to be violent. And his perspective was always that we're doing this so that we don't have civil war. We're doing this so that we don't have political violence. And unfortunately, I think in many ways, that was enraging people with whom he disagreed. Now, that's not the students that he's talking to on campus necessarily. Obviously, there's others that are really angry because there is a bit of a recruitment process that goes on when you're doing this, and people begin to change their mind. And I think that Charlie was very good at doing that. And, that for that reason, there's a lot of threats. Now, of course, most of the people who are conservative and activists like me, we're going to immediately notice that the left, the blue sky folk, they're always going to be mocking and enjoying the death of somebody who's a political opponent of theirs. And this is from Seattle, the Needling, making fun of it within minutes of when he got shot. They were posting this kind of stuff up there. But I wouldn't obsess so much about that. That's always going to be there. These are the guys that you cannot reason with, right? Look at Brandy Cruz goes out there and tries to talk to him in Seattle. They immediately assault her. They assault every journalist that wants to take photos of him. They assaulted Andy Ngo down in Portland. Continuous, regular, violent assaults. That's the only language these guys understand. But of course, they're not everybody on the left, and that's not really who you're trying to reach out to communicate about these issues. And I think this is very important to remember. The reason why people didn't like Charlie Kirk is because he was effective. He was clearly effective at communicating issues. Sometimes you may not agree with him, but he was able to do it in a polite, interactive, questioning, open-minded way. He has opinions, but he's able to go out there and listen to lots of crazy people say lots of crazy things, as they will if you ever open it up to Q&A and at a wide audience, especially a hostile audience. This is what you get. But people on the conservative side of the spectrum, people who care about liberty and freedom, we need to continually come out and reach out into college campuses, because when it comes to individual thought or freedom of speech or just independent thinking at all, that's the heart of darkness. It's been silent, censored, suppressed, monoculture thought process. It's all the administration and most of the professors think, and they've been busy hammering on these students and beating them down, making them, not allowing them to think think differently or uniquely or for themselves for a long time. A number of years ago, some people who have heard me speak in public, I've talked about going to the Evergreen State College and making a presentation in one of their classes there, and everybody thought that was crazy, but I was actually invited in by the students, and this professor let me come in. They wanted to actually talk to a conservative activist at the time. By the way, it's the last time they ever let me come on the campus. And it's a number of years now. But I remember it was a great free-flowing dialogue, lots of questions, all kinds of different topics. At the time, I was mainly focused on property rights and restoring freedom for individuals in Thurston County especially, but Washington State in general. But immediately, of course, we were talking about all kinds of subjects, abortion and marriage and family and the role of the state, I mean, just all kinds of stuff. After about an hour and a half of this, I remember this in the classroom, this girl stands up in the back, and she said, I've been here 6 years now. I'm getting ready to graduate. And how come this topic, I'm really enjoying this conversation, how come none of the ideas that you're presenting to me have I ever heard anywhere on this campus ever before? And I remember that was pretty stunning for her to both say that and to articulate that in what was, potentially a hostile sort of environment. I didn't have a security team, just me by myself with about 60 students, and they're asking all these questions. And the professor was annoyed and jumped in, and then she started trying to throw questions at me as though they were anything unique that I wouldn't have heard before. And then they didn't want me to come back after that. But I have to tell you that there's a lot of hunger for truth and honesty in the college campuses, even if you would never know that, looking at the administration or the DEI kind of suppression that came and pushed down on them. Many of you know I went to Columbia University as a student, and recently a North Korean defector went there, and she graduated, and she said that it was worse at Columbia than it was growing up in North Korea when it came to the suppression of thought. And that I found to be just a damning indication of exactly what we are facing in America today, and what would otherwise be a relatively free country, but an abusive, monoculture, closed-minded, political, thought process that exists within the school administration and most colleges in general. And Charlie Kirk got assassinated at one of those colleges, and it's just it's terrible and it's horrible to think about. But the default attitude, I think, with some people is to pull back and be timid. You can't do that. Listen, you try to do your best you can to hold some kind of security protocols in place. You have, obviously Charlie's had a lot of threats, so he had some security there. But you're not going to probably be able to stop an assassin from 200 yards away if they're dedicated enough that they're going to want to come and take you out in an open air presentation. And one of the reasons why those of us who do a lot of speaking engagements don't really concern ourselves too much about that is that 9 times out of 10, I would say probably 29 times out of 30, it's always an indoor presentation. So usually that type of scenario isn't likely. And most of the time, the crazies that are trying to hurt you or threaten you or harass you, they're going to do it up close and personal. They want to disrupt the event, or they want to come up and assault you. And so that's why you see like Riley Gaines when she travels around, or some of these other people, they'll have some personal security right there. And mainly it's just to stop that. The assassin from 200 yards, you don't have the Secret Service protection, so that's just very difficult to realistically have in place. I mean, there's some things you could do, but it's just not a scenario that is very likely, and I'm sure people will be thinking very differently now moving forward. There's not that many conservative activists that go out and do stuff like this, but he was one of the few, and I'm sure that whoever killed him, their objective is to spread fear and to suppress the idea, or people who are capable of communicating the idea about liberty and freedom and why America is good, or why the particularly high radical things that Charlie Kirk would say, like get married, have kids, live a purposeful life. Don't party yourself into oblivion, which is a good message for people who are younger, coming out of college, right around that era, and do something with your life. And I guess there's no greater threat than those concepts. And so, that's going to inspire bad people to do bad things sometimes. And it's a terrible thing to have experienced today. No words that I say could ever really do justice to the situation. But I get all these questions to me about security and you're worried about this, you're worried about that. And the answer is no, I'm not going to stop. I can't imagine anybody else who's in this space either who wants to be out there confronting the left, confronting big government, confronting the abuse of state, and then the growth of the administrative state, and all these other issues that we're trying to deal with in America and try to turn things around a bit, you can't slow down. This is actually the time you got to pick up the pace, do more. If anything, this assassination should just motivate you to do more. It's motivating me to do a lot more, and that's what you have to do. And unfortunately, in this case, you have somebody, in addition to the tragic nature of what happened to him and whoever did it. Again, we don't know who. We don't know if it's guys like this. We don't know if it's a disturbed, crazy loner. It seems like that's always the scenario. But whoever it is, they took a really wonderful person from the world, took him from his wife, took him from his beautiful family. But again, going back to the things that Charlie Kirk has said in the past, you live a purposeful life. You live a life with meaning, trying to do something, trying to make the world a better place. And getting married and having kids is certainly a big part of that process. He clearly was started doing that himself, and follow him by his example. There will be more people like Charlie Kirk out there trying to make an impact, continuing on that legacy and the legacy that most of us recognize who care about liberty and freedom out there. And this is just a terrible day. It's a terrible tragedy. As I'm doing this video, again, they don't know who actually shot him. Nobody's actually caught the guy, but it's going to get a lot of attention, of course, and it already has. And it's the kind of thing that it should not make you live in fear. It should not make you back down. It should make you be more determined to speak at more of these places. If you're somebody that does that, it should. I want to go out there now and speak on all these college campuses every chance I get, because I think it's important. And I can't speak as well as Charlie Kirk. I'm not as capable probably as he is, of course, but within the space in which I can make an impact, I'm happy to do that and do as much as we can, because we just have to get out there and keep confronting just this monoculture brainwashing, just like that poor college student after 6 years at Evergreen State College who had never heard any concepts about liberty and freedom or private property rights or individual rights that I discussed in the classroom that day. They've been kept in the dark, totally ignorant of everything, and this is the kind of thing that it's a great challenge for our time, and certainly for the next generation in particular, in overcoming this issue. And Charlie Kirk was a standard bearer for doing that, and he's going to be greatly missed. And you can never replace somebody like that, but you have to recognize that other people will have to rise up and continue on that legacy, just like when Breitbart died a number of years ago, and many of us felt kind of the same way at that time. We're just going to have to recognize that now's the time for us to step up and move forward, not to back down, and not to get timid or lower our profile or do something like that. Forget that. This is about getting out there, being even bolder, more open, more reaching out to more people, because there's a lot of good people out there. Not everybody is Antifa trying to commit violence and attack people in the streets. Most people that you disagree with politically, if you're watching this video, odds are you probably would agree with me most of the time as a liberty and freedom person. But most of the people that disagree with you are not the crazies out there. Most of them we just disagree. And you should reach out and talk to them, just the way that Charlie said, and going out and doing that where in their environment where they can come up to you and talk to you or debate you on these topics and issues. That's what you do in a free society, without censorship, without the censorship that our governor, Bob Ferguson, wants to impose on us, without the threats that our governor sometimes likes to also throw at us. We have to be able to do that anyway, regardless. Don't let them intimidate you. I don't want them to intimidate me. I'm not going to let them intimidate me. And I just want to encourage you to get out there and show up, be involved. Again, I end every video with this, but and I am ending today's video with that as well, that the future belongs to those who show it up. I say that all the time. Charlie Kirk showed up. Yes, something horrible and terrible happened to him. But he showed up, and he's made a huge impact far beyond the tragedy that we've witnessed today. And I think we're going to see that over time, that impact. And he did that by showing up. And I don't think he would back down if something like this happened to somebody else either. I think that the more of us that get out there and show up, the more likely it is that we can reduce things like this from happening in the future. It's important. We have to do it, not just for ourselves, but for our kids. Get married, have kids, live a purposeful life. These good advice for young people from Charlie Kirk. I'd repeat it here as much as I could as well. We have a lot of work to do, but we got to show up to do it. Anyway, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for watching today. And my next video will be kind of back on my regular topics.
just spent my whole life counting all the ways that everyone around me is in a better place. Always so unbothered, keeping up the pace while I can't seem to get on track. I guess I'll keep on trying to find some peace of mind, at least just one more time.